Recorded live in the Fantasmo Lounge high atop the Ritz and Kimmy building in beautiful Midtown Portsmouth, Virginia. It's Fantasmo After Dark with your host Rob Floyd and Phyllis Floyd. Tonight's topic, the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Well, that was inevitable, wasn't it?
Indeed.
One of these days we'd have to talk about Rocky Horror since we're talking about cult films here. And
it's us.
And it's us. And Rocky Horror being arguably or not arguably the greatest cult film of all time. Is it still a cult film? Hey, we're going to talk about that. But first off, hey, we just got back from MarsCon in Williamsburg, Virginia, and did four panels on
yes.
different cult films and such. And one of them was on Rocky, and it was quite well received. And so we thought, well, might as well go ahead and do the podcast on it now. It's one we've been talking about since the get-go about doing. And like I said, being cult films and all, and that's what we talk about. Why not?
It's inevitable, just like you said.
That's right. Hey, coming up, though, on Fantasmo Cult Cinema Explosion at the Chesapeake Central Library in February, being that it's Black History Month, we're doing our annual Blaxploitation double feature, and it's going to be Truck Turner and Cotton Comes to Harlem. Two movies on both ends of the spectrum of blaxploitation, and you decide which one you like best. Always free at the Chesapeake Central Library there, up on the big screen, 298 Cedar Road. Check us out on Facebook at Fantasmo Cult Cinema Explosion, and join us, won't you? Hey, and also, if you like what we talk about or you don't like what we talk about, you want to suggest something for us to do or just tell us to shut the hell up, drop us a line at phantasmoad@gmail.com. That's phantasmode@gmail.com, or on the Fantasmo After Dark Facebook page. Right?
Right on.
Alrighty then.
So, Rocky.
So, talking about the Rocky Horror Picture Show. One of the greatest cult films of all time, I said. It's true. Probably one of the first cult films, really, to develop that strong a following.
Cult following.
Yeah. It started out actually as a play in 1973, I believe it was in London. Richard O'Brien put together a bunch of songs that he had written over the previous years and wrote a few more and then weaved them together into a story as a tribute to the 50s sci-fi and B horror movies that he grew up with and loved so much.
Which we love too.
And you should too. The opening song itself, Science Fiction Double Feature, is just a great, great song.
Yeah, well, the music's wonderful. I love the music in the Rocky
Horror Picture
Show. For that matter, I love the movie, but,
Well, yeah.
We can get into more of that later.
We'll get into that in just a second.
Back to the play.
But, so the play, they put that together in London in the Royal Court Theatre upstairs, and it played to a 75-seat house to sell out crowds. It was such a success that they had to move it down the street to a bigger theater, and the buzz on the street was just, incredible. It sold out constantly, and then they moved across the pond and brought it over here to America to the Roxy Theater in L.A., and again, it just took off like wildfire and made a instant star out of Tim Curry over here and being sought after. Not O'Brien, not so much at first, to which he was a little put off by that, and I would be too if I was the writer and the creator of it all and was in the damn thing.
I might be offended.
Yeah, but it took off, and they so they decided we're going to take it to Broadway, and they took it to off-Broadway, and New York audiences weren't quite as receptive to it as L.A. audiences and London audiences, but they had already got a film deal by that time. And so in 1975, the Rocky Horror Picture Show was unleashed upon the public, with most of the original cast from the original London production intact. Tim Curry, of course, as Frankenfurter, Richard O'Brien as Riff Raff, Patricia Quinn as Magenta, Nell Campbell, Little Nell as Columbia, and I believe that was it. Jonathan Adams, who was the narrator in the original production, was Dr. Scott in the movie. And then, of course, they had a Meatloaf from the Roxy production, and two more Americans, Barry Bostwick and Susan Sarandon, to kind of round out the cast as Brad and Janet. Oh, and Peter Henwood is Rocky, so we can't forget that. And it played to under-enthusiastic audiences when it came out.
As most cult films do.
Yeah, it was released and it bombed. The general mainstream movie-going public didn't get it. It didn't do a thing for them, and it was quickly pulled and was gone. 2 years later, though, a young executive at Fox got the bright idea to put it on the midnight circuit. And they put it on the midnight circuit in the Village in New York, and that's when it took off. It reached the right crowd for it was out at that time of night looking for something to do. And, subculture, underground culture, punks, goths, gay village crowd that, didn't have anywhere else to go to do anything, found Rocky Horror, and it struck a chord. And they kept coming back every week to see it when it was shown. There was no dress up, no lines, nothing being thrown at first. That didn't happen until almost a year later. People started slowly coming dressed as the characters, singing along with the songs, not getting up and performing right at first. And then one night, one guy yelled a line that was when Janet puts the newspaper over her head in the rain, and he stood up and yelled, "Get an umbrella, you cheap bitch." Everybody laughed, loved it, and from then on, history was made.
Tradition was born.
Yeah. Now, for the sake of people who don't know anything about Rocky Horror and have never seen it before.
What is the Rocky Horror Picture Show, Rob?
Glad you asked, Phyllis. The Rocky Horror Picture Show is the story of Brad and Janet, two average, ordinary kids on a night out.
It was a night in.
It was a night out that they were to remember for a long, long time. No, we're not going to do that the whole time. But after leaving the wedding of two of their college friends, Brad and Janet are driving in the rain, and their car breaks down. And what do you do when your car breaks down in 75 and you don't have cell phones? You go walking up the street to look for
castle.
To the castle you pass just up the road and ask if you can use a phone. And
sounds like you're talking about Clue to me.
A little bit. And the people in the castle were very strange, very unusual, and things happen to Brad and Janet throughout the evening, and lots of songs are sung, and lots of music happens, and very weird things. Shenanigans ensue, and it all ends with the castle taking off and going back to the planet it was from.
The castle takes off?
It takes off.
It's a spaceship?
No, it's a vibratory physical transport device.
Okay, we can't do that all night.
We use all the callback lines. Now, the thing about Rocky Horror that was so cool and why it's so much fun is you cannot watch it on TV at home. You can, but if you've never seen it before, you can't watch it the first way there.
The Rocky Horror Picture Show is not a movie. It's an experience.
It's an interactive experience where you go to the theater and there's a cast in full costume acting out every scene in front of the screen and doing every line. And the audience is yelling lines at the screen because they know what is going to be said after that. So the screen responds to what you say. Kind of like, this was MST3K long before MST3K ever existed.
Right.
And you throw things in most theaters during certain scenes. When it's raining on the screen, people are squirting squirt guns. During the wedding scene, people throwing rice or birdseed around. When Dr. Scott makes his appearance, they throw toilet paper, Scotty toilet tissue, and so forth. It's a blast. It's a total 4D experience. It's like a rock concert and a circus and a movie all rolled into one. And if you've never seen it before, find out where it's playing in your town and go see it next weekend. It plays in theaters all over the country and all over the world every weekend, somewhere. Rocky Horror is playing since 1977.
So I guess that makes this the longest running movie ever.
Yeah, it is the longest running movie of all time, longest continuously running movie. I mean, you can have your Gone with the Wind, you can have your Citizen Kane. How long do they play in theaters? You know?
It's not like this is one of those special things they're doing these days where it's going to come back because they've remastered it and put it on Blu-ray. This has been around and it's staying around.
It has been.
I don't see that it's going to go anywhere anytime soon, even though we'll get into it later, but even though things have changed.
Oh, yeah, things have changed. When Rocky Horror came out, I mean, the musicals that were, you got to figure, it was 1975, and the musicals that were in or Broadway or whatever at the time, on stage touring and all, the hit rock musicals were Hair,
right,
coming out of the the 60s hippie generation, Grease, another
Jesus
nostalgia,
Christ Superstar.
Jesus Christ Superstar. Nothing was really touching on the underground sexuality, or Hair had a little bit of the free love kind of, but it was the hippie vibe thing, and it didn't really touch on it that much. And Rocky Horror, of course,
while it was a tribute to those 50s science fiction movies like we talked about, it also was definitely, a product of its time,
Oh, yeah. And it was pro gay liberation, basically.
Absolutely.
I mean, the main character, Frankenfurter, sleeps with everybody in the cast of the show. Even in the backstory leading up to the movie or the play, he's already slept with 3 or 4, and then throughout the course of the movie, he sleeps with Brad and Janet, and the whole time. And it really, like I said, it struck a chord with the gay subculture which wasn't like it is now. Back then, even up through the 80s, when I was in high school and all, you didn't see guys walking down the hall holding their boyfriend's hand, or girls, holding their girlfriend's hand, or even acknowledging that they were gay or had a boyfriend or a girlfriend. It was very closeted, and the only places they could go were like gay bars,
right?
And even then, it was hush hush.
Yeah. But then when you discover Rocky, you could go to the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and it was a place to be accepted no matter what you were. So, and that doesn't just go for your sexual orientation. It was a place to go when you were, the geeky girl who happened to not want to tell everybody she was geeky because, it wasn't cool to be a geek years ago. Or if you were the outcast in school, you're always accepted at Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yeah, or you liked, the underground music scene, and everybody else in high school liked the top 40 pop, and you wore the dark nail polish and the black eyeliner and all real heavy. And
I mean, every manner of not the football player and not the cheerleader. Now, I'm not saying they weren't accepted too, or they didn't want to go there, but that's what I mean. When you're not the popular kid in school, you can go to Rocky and you're accepted.
Yeah, it was always, I started going to see it in 1984 was the first time I went to see it. And, 15 years old and not having been exposed to really, that kind of scene. I like rock and roll. I like horror movies,
Right.
And it blew me away. Everything about it just completely, the whole total package just really hit me the right way. And there were all manner of different types of people there. And as I got more kept going and going, got to know some of the people and got more involved with it, you got to see that Rocky Horror, you could go, if you didn't belong in any other clique or any other group, or you were kind of an outcast, if you didn't belong anywhere else, you could belong there.
Right.
And, you were pretty much, there was no judgment. Everybody was accepted. It was a great place to go. It was a great rite. It's always been a rite of passage, a teenage rite of passage to go to Rocky Horror. It still is to a degree, but things have changed because society has changed. But, real quick, before we go into that a little deeper, talking about the movie itself, though, a lot of people have always say that Rocky's it's a fun thing to do, but it's a bad movie. And that really kind of gets on my nerves. It's like an itch I can't scratch whenever I hear that, especially from people who do it, people who do the live show. I've heard that from them. Oh, I don't like the movie, but I like doing the show. Well, then you don't like it. The scene, you don't like it, you don't get it. I will stand by my declaration that the Rocky Horror Picture Show is a perfect movie. For what it's set out to be and what it's supposed to be, it's a perfect film.
Tell me why.
Okay.
But you know what? I only said that to give you a cue because I agree with you. So tell me why, Rob.
Well, Richard O'Brien wrote this film to be a tribute to the 50s B movies, a satire of those and a tribute to those, and with a 70s rock and roll and free love sensibility. And the motto of the whole thing is "Don't dream it, be it," which is don't just be who you are. Don't think about it too much. Don't let other people think about it and tell you how you should be. Just be yourself.
Right.
And Rocky, gave you an outlet to do that.
Yes, but you're digressing. Why is it a perfect movie?
Well, because it is exactly what it sets out to be.
Okay. I agree. You just had started to go off on a
Oh,
tangent.
no.
I wanted to make sure that it was clear what you were saying.
Yeah, he wrote it to be this satire of and tribute to 50s B sci-fi and horror movies.
Right.
But with the rock and roll 70s rock and roll and sexual sensibilities, and that's exactly what it is.
Yes.
If you watch the film after having gone to see it at the theater with the whole thing, with the whole audience experience and cast and everything, and then you sit down and you watch it, yeah, it's a low-budget movie, and all low-budget movies have faults, and you can spot the low budget, where they had to cut corners on things, but overall, the music is great.
Yeah.
The acting it's good acting. I mean, it's not low budget. It's not high school play acting. It is what it is and the characters are come across as who they're supposed to be.
Right.
It's perfect. It's supposed to be a little campy,
Right.
So I don't see where people say it's a bad movie. I cannot, for the life of me, figure that out.
Well, a lot of people kind of, and I'm not defending them by any means because I love the Rocky Horror Picture Show. I think it's a wonderful movie. But I think a lot of people lump that campy feeling in with being a bad movie. I think that anytime there's camp in a movie, it's automatically a bad movie.
And because it wasn't a big success, they say it's a bad movie.
Yeah, but it's not a bad movie.
No. But then you talk about, like we were saying, the cult following of it. And that was really something when I first started going. It was eye-opening. I got to meet and get exposed to all different kinds of people from, different walks of life and different backgrounds, completely, totally different outlooks on things,
right,
and different lifestyles.
Yeah, it broadens your horizons. If you're not already exposed to anything other than what you've been brought up with, so I was raised Mennonite, so that it opens your eyes to totally different experiences. And I mean, a lot of things do that, but the Rocky Horror Picture Show and everything around it, its whole environment. Yeah,
it's people coming from all over, all different parts of, the
all
city, town. Yeah. And it's like I went to a real snooty high school. So this was really refreshing to me.
Right.
And to where you could just let go and be,
Yep. Don't dream it, be it.
That's right. And have fun and just have a blast. And everybody that came to it, actually, rather, it was there for the same reason, just to have a good time. Whether they were there to yell and scream and, or throw things or to run around in their underwear or to be on stage or be in the audience and just be a part of what was going on. I mean, when Phyllis and I, we were in the show in Norfolk, Virginia here with the cast of Fishnet Inc. for a number of years. And I played Frankenfurter for about 14 years or so.
Right.
And then emceed it for another 4 or 5 after that. Phyllis played Columbia and Magenta, and we both ran the cast for, close to 10 years almost?
Yeah, it was almost 10 years.
We directed it, produced it, rehearsed people, put on the show, everything that comes with that. So we got a little bit of background, a little bit of insight into what we're talking about here.
We're not just spouting out facts here and what we've learned. It means something to us. The Rocky Horror Picture Show is a big part of our life for a really long time.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we lived this for the longest time. And, there's various reasons why we got out of it. There's always drama with amateur, frustrated actors and stuff and productions. And also, too, you grow older, you move on, you do other things, and we got involved in other things, and those things took priority. So with all the Fantasmo stuff and Monster Fest and yada, 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 and real life and, and the day-to-day of being grown-ups, which sucks.
I don't want to be a grown-up.
But we did our time. We had a blast. And it like Phyllis said, it still means the world to us because it was such a big part of our life at the time.
Why don't you talk about how things started to change?
Okay, when I first started going, when I first started going to see it, and it just blew me away what was going on, and I slowly started to get to know a few people in the cast and to get involved, helping out a little bit here and there, and then started helping out with props, and then started helping out doing some makeup on some of the other characters and all, and slowly got accepted into the cast, like the inner circle, more or less, if you will.
Yeah. Well, and not as cast, but just accepted into
that circle of friends, that
people who were cast members.
Yeah. And then you start to see this. The same people in the audience are showing up all the time, over and over. You get to know them,
right?
And it was like a big party every Friday night. You'd see the same people. Tons of the same people and a bunch of new people.
Right.
And some people would show up and they'd sit in the theater. Some people would show up and they'd hang out in the lobby. Some people would show up and they'd hang out outside just to be part of the whole experience. And it was just amazing. It was awesome.
And it wasn't something that anyone ever consciously said, although we put word to it now as we kind of look back on things in retrospect. When you are that into a culture that you've immersed yourself in this particular thing, whatever it is. You want to know everything you can about that thing.
Oh, yeah.
And so as you get to know people and you go to your party every week, you start to learn, okay, well, that guy on the screen is Tim Curry. What else has he done?
Oh, yeah.
You find everything that you can find from Tim Curry.
Well, it's just like anything. It's just like anything you're rabid about.
Right.
And you have a passion for. You want to find every scrap you can on it.
Yes.
And,
back then, it wasn't as easy to find.
Oh, yeah.
There was internet
nothing.
wasn't as easy to locate.
There was no
stuff.
internet.
Well, in the very beginning, there wasn't, right? But
there was no
as
internet.
Time goes on.
And there was no merchandising.
Looking for things.
Yeah, and everybody, by the time I got to know some of the other people and know, so and so has all of Curry's albums, so-and-so has this, so-and-so has that, oh, so-and-so's looking for this, oh, I've got an extra one of those, and you trade stuff and you try to find stuff, and there wasn't very much merchandising out for it, so whatever scraps you could find, you ate up, you got. The other movies that the actors were in, you saw Blue Money, even though it was a bad movie, but Curry was in it.
Right.
You saw, you sought out Liz Tamania to see Little Nell, or The Wall. You'd watch The Wall. Yeah, okay, you like Pink Floyd, but you're waiting for that scene. That one quick scene that Little Nell's in, when with the long hair and those big ruby rings. You'd watch Meaning of Life with Python. Yeah, of course you would, because it's Python and it's funny. But you were looking forward to that scene with Patricia Quinn and John Cleese. You watched The 7% Solution. The Sherlock Holmes film, because you wanted to see Charles Gray play Mycroft Holmes. You owned the cast album, the Broadway original cast album of Grease, because Barry Bostwick sang and played Zuko on it.
Right.
You sought that stuff out, and you looked for it, and when you found it, it was like finding treasure. And if you saw, God, like the couple times I found Tim Curry solo albums in the thrift stores. Man,
it
was
like gold.
Yeah, I was like, and the only other things really out there were there were some buttons. A company made some buttons, and there were a few T-shirts available, and the poster books were out there, and they were hard to find, but when you found them, it was like, oh. And there was a magazine that was a Rocky Horror magazine, and then the Bill Heineken book, the Rocky Horror Picture Show book, was about it.
Yeah. Well, I know one of the things that one of the ladies in our panel last weekend said was, I forget how she worded it, but basically it was kind of, how did you learn your part? How did you learn what your makeup was supposed to look like? Because back before we had the VHS and DVD and internet, the only way you knew what the makeup was supposed to be looking like was to see it on the screen. And of course, it's not going to hold on a frame for you.
Well, but the book, the Bible.
Right. Well, that's what I was getting
the Bill
to.
Heineken
you had
book,
the Bible.
that you could get at the time. You could get that in Walden's Books. That was constantly available,
Yes.
and that was what everybody went by, was really that, which is kind of odd. Well, not odd, but it's kind of funny because some of the big close-up shots are the test makeups, which changed a little bit before they got to the screen.
Right.
So people would use that, and it's kind of funny because those shots are in black and white, so a lot of people used white face, like clown white, and some people still do. But if you look at it on the screen while you're watching the movie, they're not wearing clown white. They're wearing just very, very pale flesh. Yeah. And that's stuff you learn as you go on.
Right.
I know, I'm getting
we didn't need to get into details. I brought it up because I thought it was interesting because, people today that are now joining casts, they don't have those types of hardship.
No, they just pop in the DVD
and I'm not saying that
it.
it's good or bad or whatever. All I'm getting at is that it's really interesting because I think that goes along with the fact that yes, things have changed.
Yeah.
Because when we loved it as we loved it then, you had to really work at it to try and get where you were.
I mean, if you
but
wanted...
now, I'm not saying you don't have to practice your part and do your makeup well, but you don't have to work to figure out what you're supposed to do.
No,
as hard as you did
it's
then.
a lot easier now because you've got various DVD releases and VHS releases, and there's even, there's been releases of tapes with audience participation and with Shadowcast doing it.
Yeah.
So there's those. When we started out, there was no release on DVD. There was no DVD. It was just VHS. And even before that, when VHS was really new, you would go to the theater and watch it every week and learn it by being immersed in it at the theater and watching other people do it who had been doing it before you. And if you got in with them and understudied, they would teach you what they knew, and that's how you learn it, through dedication, because you wanted to learn it really. You really wanted to perform. You wanted to be a part of that and do it. And after a bit, though, there was a bootleg DVD, not DVD, a bootleg VHS going around that you could manage to get a hold of if you knew somebody that had it. And it was awful quality. It was really horrible, but it was amazing that you had it. And I did manage to get a copy of it at some point, and it was horrible. The color went from a regular color to like a greenish tint at one point, and I don't know. It was just awful. But
wasn't there a scene that was upside down?
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Really weird.
I don't know where it came from. I can't remember if it looked like it was filmed in a theater or what. But it was just god awful. But that was like gold to have that, because one of the things that really I want to say, and I hate to say killed the scene, but let's say it changed the game. How about that?
Yeah, that's
that really changed the scene was when it got released on video cassette and the 15th anniversary, which I want to say, do the math, 75.
Well, it should be, 90?
Yeah, 90. Because like I said before that, the only way you could see it was to go to the theater.
Right.
And and word of mouth is how you heard about it.
Mm-hmm.
About this thing called Rocky Horror, and these crazy people running around in their underwear, and guys dressed as girls, and stuff being thrown in the air, and people yelling at the screen, and
what a spectacle!
Yeah, and you wanted to, what is this? I got to go see. What is this movie about? And the only way you could find out is to go to the midnight showings. Well, along comes the VHS release in '90, and slowly people could buy it or rent it, and people who had heard about it, like, oh well, I'm going to find out what this Rocky Horror is all about. I'm going to go rent it and watch it. And then they watch the movie, and it's like, oh, this is that's no big deal, or oh, this is a piece of crap, or whatever they thought about it, and they didn't feel the need to go to the theater to see it, because it doesn't tell you on the video cassette, the movie, that it's a live show at the same time. And without word of mouth telling you, or you see it in the theater and you just watch it on video, and you just don't know. You just don't know. It really loses a lot of the experience. Now, that started to hurt attendance at the shows for a while, because the mystique was gone.
Right.
The mystery was gone.
Yeah, they could all sneak into the privacy of their own home and watch it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And like I said, and it's like, oh well, I saw it, whatever, and, it's no big deal.
Yeah.
And they're completely missed the point of it. And like I said, sure, you can watch it at home and enjoy it, but watching Rocky Horror in your living room on DVD is like watching any other movie with the sound turned off. You're only getting half the show, you know. And yes, you can quote me on that. That's mine. I made that up. But it's true, though. It really is. If you've ever seen it or been to the theater, you know that's the whole picture, and it really is amazing. There's never been anything else like it in the history of movies, and it's incredible. If you've never seen it, you've got to go find a local theater. But the scene, going back to that, how it changed.
Not only could you watch it in your own home, but it kind of let other people know about it.
Yeah, it opened up the door to a lot of other people who just heard about it. It might have been kind of, I don't know, and then they saw it and they're like, oh, this looks crazy. You know. Right. On the other hand, it brought different people in. It cut back on the crowd, but it changed the face of people that were going. And slowly, over the years between then and now, the face of the audience has changed drastically. Now, that is in no small part to the release on video cassette, like I said, but also when it started to get, I don't know, more accepted, but more, I guess, appropriated. How about that?
Yeah. Well, it started to become acceptable to kind of acknowledge it in other media.
It became a little started to become kind of trendy to go. You would see people showing up at the show, normals, if you will, the kind of people that used to make fun of kids that went to Rocky started coming to Rocky. The crowd itself started to change. The type of people that got into the cast started to change. And you'd see this all over.
Yeah, we're talking from experience.
I'm talking
but also
from experience, but in general too.
Right. I mean, we know people in Rocky casts all over the place, and it's kind of a general theme.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it's everywhere, but it's
and by no means is this putting it down. It's still a blast to do. It's still fun to go see. It's still a great night out and a rite of passage, a teenage rite of passage. But it has changed. Like I said, a lot of that has to do with the crowds that started coming, the type of people that started coming, and also the things that were happening in society over the years.
Well, I mean, things that we need to point out, things that are good examples of that. For example, one of the things that we noticed, it started to show up places you wouldn't expect. Like the Drew Carey Show.
Oh, yeah. It started to show up. Rocky Horror would show up on primetime television. The Drew Carey Show. I know everybody's probably seen that episode where they go to Rocky Horror.
Right.
It showed up on a lot, referenced in a lot of other shows. Mm-hmm. But some of the main ones are like Drew Carey. Of course, Glee, just a year or two ago, a couple of years ago. That was like almost a nail in the coffin.
The Rocky Horror Glee show kind of hurt me a little bit.
Yeah. An episode of Cold Case Files they did. It was all wrapped around Rocky Horror. It even had Barry Bostwick in it, playing a guy who used to go to Rocky when he was a teenager. Mm-hmm. And God, it just everywhere it started to show up like that. And then a lot of other celebrities and revivals would start to get into the show. Now, some, before they were celebrities, got into it. I mean, Russell Crowe, when he was young, played Eddie in one of the actual play productions in Australia. Craig Ferguson and Anthony Head and Adrian Edmondson played in the London revival in like 1991. Jack Nicholson did the criminologist and a bunch of other celebrities in a benefit show not long ago, a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. So, a lot of people have gotten involved in it. And they've done a few benefit shows over the last few years because it's hip to do. It's hip and trendy to do. Right. And it's not so much of that subculture anymore because that subculture's kind of gone.
I hate to chime in and say hip and trendy, and we kind of say that with a little
disdain.
Because it partially because they have taken something that was, you said this the other day, that was ours.
Yeah.
And ours, I mean, the subculture family that is the Rocky Horror Picture Show casts and fans and whatever.
The people who got into it because it meant something to
Right.
them on a personal level. And
I'm not talking about the people who just showed up because they wanted the attention on stage, because
No.
there are plenty of those.
Oh, yeah,
But
yeah.
the ones that it actually meant something to, it was very important in whatever times of their lives,
Mm-hmm.
our lives, and it kind of got leaked out. It's not whatever happens in Vegas stays in Vegas anymore.
Yeah, it really got diluted, and what you'd see people show up, and a lot of people who are involved in it these days. It's like when you see somebody walking down the street or in the mall, some young kid wearing a Ramones shirt, who's never heard of the Ramones, who's never really been a fan, but he bought the shirt at Hot Topic.
Yeah.
Or somebody wearing a Misfit shirt just because it's got that skull on it and says Misfits because it's cool to do. It's cool to wear it, but they don't know the
But they're
first
not
song
really
by the Misfits.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I get that there are certainly people out there, of younger generations than us that know who the Misfits are and then, appreciate the Rocky Horror Picture Show
yeah,
for what
yeah.
it really is. I'm not trying to
Not
pinpoint
everybody.
and point fingers, but it's just odd how things have changed from something that was, such a subculture and meant so much to so many people, was so important to so many people to go and be themselves.
But, part of that is because the way society has changed, too.
Right, because now it's more acceptable.
Yeah, it's
if you're
not
in an alternate lifestyle of any type.
It's not shocking anymore to see two guys walking down the street holding hands.
And, thank God that we're at that place.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm so happy that we're finally there.
Oh, yeah.
But it also has changed, that particular culture.
It makes the things that were taboo and transgressive
right.
in Rocky commonplace and mainstream now.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of the whole point of our panel that we did at MarsCon. A presentation was Rocky Horror from Cult to Mainstream, is because it has become mainstream now.
It has.
It's been shown on television in prime time. There's ungodly amount of merchandise out now. There's MAC makeup. Okay, one of the most expensive and snooty lines of makeup out there in Nordstrom's and Macy's and high-end stores like that has a Rocky Horror line of makeup.
Unbelievable.
You can get toys on the shelf at Toys R Us of Rocky Horror action figures.
The Rocky Horror Picture Show is all about sex, okay? I mean, there's a whole lot of other stuff in that movie, but there's a whole lot of sex. Why is it in a toy store?
It's about sex with everybody. It's about straight sex, gay sex, group sex. It's about all kinds of.
But I'm going to sell this in a
sexual
toy store.
freedom. Yeah,
that makes sense.
And now there's action figures in the toy store of a guy and a girl in their underwear, and a guy in a corset and fishnet stockings and a garter belt. Which, hey, I like action figures, but should it be right there, next to the SpongeBob action figures?
Well, maybe actually.
Well,
SpongeBob.
SpongeBob. Okay, bad example. But right next to the Godzilla action figures, I mean, let them grow and learn about that stuff as they get older and become teenagers and stuff. I mean, but once again, it's the stuff that was taboo at the time is now so commonplace, and there's so much merchandising out, and you can get stuff on it easily. You can get anything you want: books, toys, T-shirts. Phone cases, purses, tennis shoes. You can see the movie anytime you want it. The flick of a
rubber
button.
Duck.
Yeah, Rubber Duck is the worst one.
Oh, that was horrible.
There's some company that makes these rubber ducks, and they do them as characters, and they have a Frankenfurter one. And when I saw that, I was like, "It's done. It's over."
Oh my God, it's horrible.
It's
over.
The
worst thing I've ever seen.
It's like punk rock used to be this real subversive, intense thing. You don't hear about punk rock anymore at all.
Right.
You don't see guys like with mohawks and chains and safety pins.
Do, but
not that
don't
much.
Call it punk rock anymore.
Yeah, but once little kids started wearing mohawks and their parents thought it was cute, punk's dead. It's done. It's not subversive anymore. It's not tough. It's not street anymore. No, it's done. Once little kids start appropriating the fashion, and the parents are like, "Oh, look how cute that is," and they buy it for them, and then once again, when it's readily available in stores in the mall, for the masses, when you don't have to make it yourself or you don't have to go to lengths to get these things, it's become mainstream.
So the Rocky Horror Picture Show went from a cult phenomenon
And a phenomenon it was.
Indeed. To a mainstream phenomenon, sort of.
Yeah.
And, you know, I know it's been hard for me not to do that. But I don't know. We've been kind of ranting a little bit, and I don't want anybody out there to think that we dislike what it is now.
Oh, no. I mean,
I'm not saying
we're not
that.
bitter at all. It's just making a point, really.
Yeah.
You know, because like I said, it's still a blast. It's still fun. It still draws people. And for whatever reason you go to it, you know, as long as you're having a good time and you enjoy it,
that's all.
That's what's
matters.
important, you know.
Yeah.
And long it keeps it alive and keeps it
alive,
going.
Yeah, that's the important part.
But now it's kind of the themes in it and everything in it, where it was a rite of passage and an event and a place for you to go to be free and let it all hang out and belong. Now it's kind of like a nostalgia trip, a nostalgia show, because everything in it that was taboo and subversive, like I said a little while ago, is not anymore. And so, you know, if you can go and watch it and experience it and you know, maybe feel like or think back to that time when it was.
Yeah.
Well,
You know,
I mean, it's almost quaint in a way.
There are new generations coming up who are learning about the Rocky Horror Picture Show for the first time. Some of them completely out of the blue. Some of them because their parents used to do it.
No, that's great. I love when parents bring their kids, and they're like, "Yeah, I'm bringing my kid to show them what I used to do."
Right.
You know, that's kind of cool when it's a legacy. You know,
well, and it's cool that people are learning about it on their own too. I mean, I'm glad that it stuck around. That's, you know, there was a time when we thought maybe it wouldn't last. That it had its run.
Yeah.
That its importance was gone and it didn't need to be there anymore.
Well, yeah, there was a point where the crowds were getting smaller and smaller, and people just weren't showing up, and people weren't interested in it.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe...
But I think it's had a bit of a resurgence.
Yeah,
And I'm really glad about that.
I mean,
you know, it's just different. And, you know, I think, too, that we have experienced quite a bit in our still short lives so far. And we're pretty out there when it comes to, you know, being accepting of different lifestyles and different personalities and whatever else. But, you know, there are kids out there who are still young and maybe not as experienced as we are, who maybe this is still a little naughty for them, a little bit of a place to get away from very restrictive parents or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, that's not something we really talked about because, well, we don't have kids of our own. And, I mean,
No.
you know, we have nieces and nephews.
Yeah.
But so perhaps it's still that place for some people.
Yeah, and that's cool, because, I mean, you know, I remember being that age, and even though, you know, my parents knew I was going to the movies to see Rocky Horror, they didn't really know what it was all about, and they did, but they didn't, and not that they would have really cared that much, because, you know, because I wasn't a bad kid, but it just felt freeing to go and to be there and to be, you know, it's like, we're out on our own tonight, you know, we're going to this thing and we're going to hang out and you know, and be groovy and get laid and have a great time and whatever else happens, you know. And it was just, you know, great memories of the time that we did it. Mm-hmm. And, you know, the people that we have known and still friends with and, you know, gotten close to, and just the experiences of the whole thing. I cannot say enough good things about it, really, without eventually getting a little misty, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's right.
But, you know, it is not a cult film anymore. People still call it that because in the broadest sense of the term, but it has gone mainstream. And, you know, just like anything, there's a little sadness in that it's not that thing that was just ours. It's everybody's. You know, it's like I use the movie Highlander as an example. The first Highlander movie came out, kind of bombed. It developed a little cult following on video. Then they made the TV series, and that got super popular, and they made more movies, and then everybody was a Highlander fan. They were having big conventions and everything. It's like, okay, it's not a cult movie anymore.
Right,
you know?
Right. I mean, this happens to other movies. I'm glad that you brought that up. It's not like the Rocky Horror Picture Show is the only movie that began as a cult film and has moved on to become more mainstream. This happens.
Yeah.
And sometimes it doesn't, but...
Yeah, and, you know, and I say the merchandising, because, you know, again, you can think, man, they sold out to the man, you know. that sensibility isn't really around anymore about selling out to the man. Now it's like, I'm making $1, motherfucker.
Yeah,
I'm making $1. And, we scrounged for every scrap we could find, and now, am I that cynical where it's like, oh, God, they put something else out? Well, part of me is, but the other part of me buys it because...
All right, look, if you still love Kiss after all of their merchandising, there's no way.
Even Gene Simmons cannot make me hate Gene Simmons. Though he tries constantly. It's the same thing with Rocky Horror. I mean, I don't buy every scrap of merchandise that comes out. Don't get me wrong. But there are some things it's like, man, they put out, it's like, some of it is annoying that it's out, but some of it, like the action figures, okay, it's cool that they're there. And yeah, I'm going to get them.
Oh, well, yeah, they're action figures.
But
I am not going to own that duck.
No, we're not getting that damn duck.
It's not happening.
No. If anything, we'll get it just to blow it up or something. But even though it is, for lack of a better word, sold out and stuff is everywhere, like I said, on the one hand, I go, oh God, something else is out. But on the other hand, it's like, hey, cool, something else is out.
Right.
So it has, since it has gone mainstream, it has opened up to a whole new group of people or crowd of people that wouldn't have gone to see it or wouldn't have known about it. So that part of it is cool. But it's also drove a stake in the heart of what it was, and the core crowd or whatever you want to, that subculture that was. But the subculture doesn't really exist anymore because, like I said repeatedly, I've said this, is society has broadened and opened up, and those things aren't a subculture anymore.
Right.
So take it for what it is. I stand by what I said earlier, that it's a perfect film for what it's set out to be and what it's supposed to be, and I could sit down and watch it right now and enjoy it just as much as I did, 20 years ago and 10 years ago, and every time, because it means something to me on a personal level. It struck a chord, and it's still fun.
It's a great movie. I mean, even if you're not crazy about the story or whatever, the music is amazing. Anyway, we don't need to justify it to anybody.
Now, I remember the music. I remember before I ever saw the movie, I got the album at a yard sale, and I knew of it, and I think I'd seen the book at the mall, looking at the bookstore at the mall, and the album, it was in a paper sleeve, didn't even have the album cover, so it was just the sleeve and the paper on the record that said Rocky Horror Picture Show soundtrack, and I took it home and put on the big, those big 70s, 80s headphones that are back in style now.
Indeed.
And sat down in the living room and listened to it from start to finish, and just immediately fell in love with every song on there. And that had to have been 83, maybe. It was before that I went to see it in the theater. And so then I was looking for stuff to find out about it.
Right.
And there was no way you could find out about it except...
Yeah.
Accidentally,
something we haven't discussed amongst ourselves, even, I don't think.
Oh, this will be good.
Yeah. Well, it's not super interesting, but it's a thought. Because I have them occasionally. The Time Warp.
Yeah.
That's on practically every Halloween album ever.
And has been.
And since when did that start?
I don't know if that was before it was released on VHS or if that was right after. I cannot recall.
And I don't know that answer. That's why I was asking.
And it's been done at lots of wedding receptions, too.
Indeed. So, I mean, do people hear the Time Warp and just think that's that wacky song on the Halloween album? Or, I mean, I'm sure there are still people in the world who don't know what the Rocky Horror Picture Show is. As hard as that is for me to believe, there are people out there.
I think Rocky, it's one of those things that people might not know what it's all about, but they've heard of it.
Right.
And Time Warp.
So
That's from that movie.
Okay.
That's that song from that movie, and it's that dance that they tell you how to do it in the song. Well,
which is not unusual for some dances.
Yeah.
So.
Which is now one thing that's cool about that. We'll go back to the plays for a minute. Every time you see the play, it's always it's the same script, but the play's different. The characterization may be a little different. The costumes are always a little different because, each play wants to, I guess they want to put their own little mark on it. But that's the kind of cool thing about going to see the play.
Right. Things can be new and
it's the
exciting
same.
again.
It's the same show, but there's things about it. The design is always different, and the time warp is always different.
Yeah.
Okay, now the line from the song is, it's a jump to the left, a step to the right. Put your hands on your hips, pull your knees in tight. It's a pelvic thrust that drives you insane.
You can't just
Let's
say
do the
insane.
time warp again. Now, it sounds pretty straightforward. I said straight when referring to Rocky. On how it's done. But if you take those lines, that description, and you try to come up, without having ever seen it, how do you put those moves together? 10 different people do it in 10 different ways. Every time we've seen the play, and I guess it's a tradition, it's done differently. It's those same moves, the same descriptions, but the moves are different.
Yes.
Different from the movie, different from each play to play. And some of them are kind of cool,
Yeah,
the way
seen
they've
some
come
really
up with
cool
it.
ones.
If you ever get a chance to go see the play in any town near you at any
Jump at it.
time,
Do it.
man, go see it. It is such a blast. There's nothing like seeing it live, especially if they have a good cast, a good Frankenfurter, a good Riff and Columbia and all that, Magenta. It's such a blast and such a great experience. And when the play,
and it's really exciting again.
Oh yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Every time I step foot into the theater to see the Rocky Horror Picture Show with a shadow cast, as it is, I still get that sense of awe and a sense of excitement. But when I go see a live production,
it's like something brand new.
I have butterflies, and
Yeah.
I'm excited and nervous, and I just can't wait. It's such a weird feeling to think, because it's like I'm going to be on stage, and I'm not. But I want to see something new.
But you're just waiting because it's you know what's coming, but you don't know how it's coming.
Yeah.
And
you
it's
just gotta
always
see it.
it's always a blast to see that. Man.
Yeah, is anybody doing it now? Because I want to go see
I
it.
don't know. I don't know. Maybe around Halloween we'll look
We need to
around
find.
and
Yeah,
see
we'll take a trip.
Yeah, we can take a little road trip and see.
Road trip.
Halloween is definitely the time when, if people are going to do it, usually it's around Halloween. Not always, but usually it's near Halloween is the best time to sometime in October to look around for it.
So if any of you guys listening out there know of a production of the Rocky Horror Show live, send us info, because we want to come, and we like road trips. So do it.
Yep. And if locally here in Tidewater, it is done at the Narrow Expanded Cinema on Colley Avenue, where it has been done since 1977, 77, 78, the first time they showed it there. It's been shown continuously there since then, and it's still being done there with the Shadowcast, Fishnet Inc., our old cast, the second, fourth, and if there's a fifth Friday in the month, it's done there. So you can go there and see it if you're in town here, anywhere. And if you're not, check around locally near you, within driving distance.
Yeah, there's casts all over.
There's casts all over the place. So
you can check out the Rocky Horror web ring online. Some of the links there have broken where the casts have been defunct or whatever, but for the most part you can still locate, and it's all set up there by city, so you can find stuff near you.
Yeah, so it's a lot easier these days to find
It
find
really
it than it
is.
used to be. The internet is a wonderful thing for all the bad things some people say about it.
Well, I guess that's about it, huh? I mean, we could
We
sit
could
here
ramble and
reminisce
ramble, and I could tell stories that I wouldn't want my mom to hear. But
let's not do that.
but yeah, we're not going to do that. So yeah, that's about it, I guess. That's the Rocky Horror Show here, one we've been talking about doing for a long time, and we finally did it here.
And since we were talking about that to all of our Rocky family of the past, if you're out there, we love you.
Yep.
Miss you.
Miss you. A lot of you we don't get to see, and haven't seen in a while. Drop us a line, give us a call, send us a message on Facebook, and anybody else out there that's listening, how's that for a segue? Don't forget, drop us a line there on the Fantasmo After Dark Facebook page or at phantasmoad@gmail.com, and let us know what you thought of tonight's show, or, suggest other stuff, or, if you just want to say hi.
And if you're in a cast or have been in a play, send us a picture. We love to see stuff. So send us some stuff.
Yeah, and hey, and here's to you right here for, doing the show and sticking with it and
keeping it alive.
Keeping the dream alive.
Don't dream it, be it.
That's right. And raising my glass here to absent friends.
Indeed.
All right, here, clinkies. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.